There's plenty more evidence. There are documents. There are tapes.
The vice president told me.
There's a completely money laundered transaction. The way he got paid $3 million of that money he was cashing in on, the money went from Ukraine to Latvia, to Cyprus, to the U.S.
There is Rudy Giuliani making his case against Joe Biden and his son as Democrats make a move of their own. 3 House committees demanding the transcript of that call with the new Ukraine leader from July. Ken Starr, former independent counsel, Fox News contributor. How you doing, sir? And welcome back here. Tell us about the dangers of doing this or not. Would you put out the transcript or not, sir?
Well, good morning, Bill. Not at this time. I don't think there should be a rush. There are dangers. The precedent of any president, making public transcripts of confidential conversations by their very nature. A conversation with a foreign leader is, whatever the subject is, it's sensitive. It goes to the relationship, if not to substance. Now, that having been said, there's a competing principle, and we're seeing that at work, and that's accountability and checks and balances. So I think that the Senate is suggesting an appropriate middle course. Let's have the Senate Intelligence Committee conduct its investigation. It knows how to handle confidential information, without the world necessarily needing to know. But we're seeing the dynamic because of all of the background of impeachment, which is unfortunate, but it's a reality.
Okay, I didn't hear you say no entirely, but perhaps no eventually, or even maybe a yes eventually. Ron Johnson said this: it's a very dangerous precedent, and I think it's going to really harm any president, whether it's this one or a future president's ability to talk to world leaders candidly. Would you do a partial release to issue some sort of clarification of the issue?
You just needed my answer is no full release at this time, but you calibrate. You do step by step. I think Senator Johnson is spot on in saying this is a dangerous precedent. Doesn't mean you don't eventually do it, but yeah, you try then to negotiate. Let's have a negotiated solution. Let's sit in a room with the Senate Intelligence Committee. It may be that the Senate Intelligence Committee members themselves review the full transcript. So there are different ways of calibrating this and negotiating this, but don't rush to publish. We live, I know, in the age of transparency, but that has to be balanced against an enduring presidential interest in carrying on the foreign policy of the United States in a responsible way.
What have you thought about this whistleblower saying that he or she did not have firsthand knowledge of the conversation? Either they were informed of it, either they saw a recording or heard a recording or saw a transcript. What do you make of this claim?
Well, I tell you, I'm very distressed when an individual takes it on himself or herself to say, the weight of the world is on me. There's so many officials who are privy to a presidential phone call. So we'll see. Let's find out all the facts. But the President of the United States, again, should be assured the presumption of confidentiality of what he or she is saying in a phone call is so vitally important to carry on the foreign policy of the United States. So right now, I would say, let's don't give any Purple Hearts or awards to the whistleblower. We're talking about the presidency, not just the occupant of the Oval Office at this time.
I hope you come back for more analysis. Thank you, sir. Ken Starr with us today, giving us his view. Thank you, sir. We'll see where it goes. Appreciate it.